As we go our separate ways in the saucer, I'm encountered by a cat. No, a Moogle. No, a cat on a Moogle? What?
Kate Sith here, and your future isn't clear. You're getting what you want, but then you're losing something dear. I better tag along. Don't go ask me why I'm joining. If you're questioning if I'm a spy, that shouldn't be important. Version 3, I'm the peak, and below me is the muscle. Hit your game over, we ain't even got a tussle.
Alright, the stream is live.
I'm sorry for deceiving you.
Awesome.
I'll just give it 30 seconds for people to join, and I will do my intro, and then we'll get going.
I'm gonna run to the toilet, so introduce me last.
Okay, you've got 30 seconds.
Bug.
Michael, coming to you from the toilet.
Literally been sat here waiting for the clock to tick for 20 minutes, and then he runs to the toilet at 8:31.
Alright, let's go save the world.
Oh, hang on, I need to mute the YouTube.
Oh, you are a live viewer.
Oh, I can leave so it doesn't skew the numbers if you want.
No, it's good. I'll give it a couple of seconds in case any people join, and I will officially start it. In fact, we'll get going because Michael's in the toilet.
He's back.
He's back.
Yes, I've got
All
my
right.
hands.
Hello and welcome to Chat Sith Get Banged, the Team Calamity Final Fantasy TCG podcast. I am your host Tom Hall, and today I'm joined by Team Calamity's Mitch Lander.
Hello.
And we've got YYT and Meme FM's Michael McMillan.
Hello.
And then our very special guest for today, he needs no introduction, but we will do him one anyway because he asked us to. It's multiple worlds finalist, 2018 World Champion, Mr Cool, XIII the Wizard, Alex Hancox.
What's up, nerds?
Hello. Did I get all the titles, Alex?
Yeah, all the ones I paid you to
Perfect.
throw in there. Yep.
You forgot Daddy Cool.
Oh, Daddy Cool.
No, we didn't.
Okay, I was worried we'd lose our sponsored segment. But no, thanks for joining, Alex, and welcome everyone. I think we've got some people live, so if you've got questions for Alex and stuff, feel free to bung them in the chat, and we're going to do like a little speed Q&A with him towards the end. But first of all, we'll just talk about where things are. It's hard to do podcasts at the moment because nothing is really happening, and before we know it, it's already the end of Opus XII. It's like another Opus has passed. So I guess we'll just talk about what you think's been happening with Opus XII and where you're at. I guess, Alex, for you, you've sort of had a bit of resurgence in the game. You were a bit quiet the year before, and now you're sort of back active again, streaming, Twitch streaming. It all seems very positive. Is it a love of the Opus, or just you wanted to get back into it?
Yeah, both. I mean, I got back into it when the set came out, start of November, was it? I thought, you know what, we'll give streaming a go. We're stuck in lockdown still. Don't know what it's going to be going on for. Gives people something to watch. You know, to try and keep the game sort of as alive as it can be during this period. And yeah, played a bunch of decks. Got the hang of Octagon a little bit more and stuff like that, and it turned out to be a really fun set. The dual element stuff we got out of this set made for a lot of sort of refreshing new deck ideas, fresh meta compared to the last couple of sets before it, and yeah, it turned out pretty well. And it's still even now it's still changing and evolving, even with only about a month left of the set. So it's nice that, you know, compared to last set, which was all March Ritz from beginning to end, we've seen you know, things change from Shikaris to the mad Neo XIII turn 1 no backup kind of decks.
I can't believe you chose the two worst decks. The most annoying to play against decks is the defining decks in the Opuses.
But we had all this nice stuff in between, so that's all right.
Yeah.
Actually, we do hold at Team Calamity. We hold you accountable for Neo XIII, Alex, because in your set review, you said don't worry about XIII because it's a card no one would play at locals, and it sort of put it in everyone's head on our team, and we see it all the time.
You had to prove me wrong. You'd be like, yeah. Look at this guy saying UX crap. I'm going to prove him wrong by playing 3 in every deck. Is that it?
No, I think it's just the idea that you would not play it with your friends has been somewhat
I
missed.
see.
So,
see.
not that it's a great card. It's horrible to play against, and yeah, that's why you wouldn't. Ben saying yay Ned deck on the chat. So yeah. But you've also been Twitch streaming, playing the actual games as well. Is that your first time you've been playing them, or have you always been a Final Fantasy fan?
Most of the ones I've been playing on stream are the first time ones. I played about half of the main titles when I started doing them on the stream, and I was like, well, gives me, eventually, it's fun doing FF like sort of 5 days a week at the start of it, and then you kind of start running out of ideas, start running out of things to talk about. We're going to keep the stream going. You want to keep people interested in like the brand, so because that's the thing, right? Sometimes you play you play or watch your favorite FF games, and then you see some of the characters, and like, yeah, I want to go and build a Final Fantasy deck around those characters or something like that. So it's just something to keep up the vibe. Hopefully it inspires people more with FFTCG as well, as a side thing. Yeah, it's just fun. They're all mostly different, have their own things to offer. It's been good kind of relaxing fun during this period.
Yeah, actually that was one of the pre-submitted questions, was around playing the games now on your stream. Have you been inspired by any cards that you sort of dismissed because they're not very good cards, or like you want to play this character now or something? But
I think it was more like maybe the reverse, like because I hadn't played Final Fantasy V before like a few weeks ago, and obviously that XIII is this kind of character I became fairly known for. I chose Bartz as my World Championship promo card, and I picked these sort of two favorite characters purely from the TCG. So I thought, the new Bartz that came out this set with the Boko and all the new support, Kryl, obviously any Kryl gamers. That has been that was a kind of inspiration for me to play the game that way too. And Thancred decks playing in all these Zidans now, Firewater, Zidan. Thought FF9's got to be given a go as well, surely, right?
Definitely a bit childish, you were saying though before we started the stream.
Yeah, definitely a bit childish game, right, Mitch?
Hang on. Is it not just the best Final Fantasy you've ever played?
No comment there, Mitch.
Somewhat baited into that, but it's good. So Alex, you spoke about refreshing of the meta. I suppose it's been a bit weird because there's not really been any. There's been some online tournament stuff, obviously not the regular stuff we would have had throughout the year, like Crystal Cups and everything. We can really gauge the thing. We'll hand over to like Mitch and Michael so that you don't just copy everything Alex says in terms of opinion. How have you found? Alex calls it a meta refresh. How have you guys found it? Sort of different. Obviously, Alex is at the top end of like the competitive mindset. Michael, you're sort of near the top as well, I guess. Mitch, more in the middle to the top.
I mean,
So,
all
like-
I've ever seen is Neo XIII. I don't know about I've not seen these samurais. I've not seen Barrel Eye. I've just seen Neo XIII turn 1 every game. So that's my meta.
You should come play in YYT locals. We don't have many. I don't think we have any XF players that play online. Yeah. We know someone who, when the card got spoiled, was like, I'm bringing that to every locals I go to. And we were all just like, okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because it's not only is there like smaller events, there's like larger spaces between them as well. Like even locals, like there's a week between locals where like you'd have a locals, you'd have a testing day in kind of YYT as well. So like there's less innovation, while like not less innovation, there's less frequent innovation. So there's less times where people are continually working on like certain things to make them better and better, or at least for most people, I think that's the case anyway.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, what's interesting is that Marsh Ritz went off the cliff as soon as the new set came out. As far as I'm concerned, I've not seen it at all. It was overly dominant. It was carrying games on its own, and now it's just not seen. Is that because there's no big tournaments going on, or is it just the game's moved on already from like what seemed to be like the most overpowered, easy to run combination is now just gone?
I don't know. It's weird. You're right, because Bascus Fenaleon as well has kind of dropped to a tech card more than like a 3 of in every fire deck, even though fire is really good. I think it just Marshalls isn't bad. I think it's just it's not a plug and play card anymore. I think that's kind of what Alex was saying in his streams in the past, that you should try and build fire decks without Marsh Ritz and see how much better or worse it is, than just assume that it's going to be the best thing to put in the deck. And I don't know, maybe just because of the new fire water combinations that make it super powerful, that in fact the fire earth usually just wants to run lightning and you end up playing earth lightning in the end anyway, or that mono fire probably just wants to run samurais or magicka stuff, and in the end you end up not having enough slots for Marsh Ritz, because it's not just the cards themselves, you have to run suboptimal backups as well to make them really worthwhile. And I don't know, a lot of people are just finding it's not worth that for maybe a couple turns of massive acceleration.
I also think Opus XI was a bit shy of combos. Like, there was the really obvious was March and Ritz, so everyone looked at that. This set, you've seen the Thancred, you've seen like Tenzin with Cyan and stuff like that. So those combos are already there. Barrel Eye Guido was made obvious really early on. So people look at those cards and think, right, I can make a deck around that. Whereas in Opus 11, it was March Ritz looks good, I'll just make that. And that seemed to be what everyone thought.
I think fire just maybe got power creeped a lot more than everything else in that set, maybe. Like, just in terms of like the macro scale of it rather than the micro scale. It was just when every element gets power creeped a little bit, fire just got the most. That's it.
Yeah, someone in chat saying their Samurai deck was their strongest deck, and it's better than March Ritz, so they've taken it out.
Yeah, Samurais are like S tier right now. They're very, very, very good. But they've got counters now. Obviously, like Lock destroys it. But yeah, I don't know, the meta is nice and not settled. It's still obviously moving, but it's like a nice, like it's plural. It's a plural meta compared to, like, as you guys were saying, of Marsh Ritz, BFA, Kadaj being everywhere last set.
I think there's a lot of like less talked about elements too that are the reason the meta is kind of the way it is right now. Like a couple of weeks ago, I probably would have said to you that like the Thancred Water Lightning decks are like in the top tier, and now I'm kind of think they're maybe on the cusp or not even top tier anymore. And the three top decks are like Neo XIII, Water Earth deck, Lock Earth Wind stuff, and Samurais. If you look at all their kind of their main forwards, or the big forward in question in each of those decks, it's all 9k up and above. And Amaterasu came out this set, and it's one of like the biggest counters to, you know, the popular entry ability strategies that have been so dominant since, like, I don't know, like Opus 4, kind of 5. And it counters a lot of, counters Marsh Ritz for a start. Like, you know, your Marsh gets hit by an Amaterasu, you don't just lose the kind of the Marsh Ritz, but you lose the three backups you were going to get from the Ritz attacking. You lose the 1 damage, you lose the forcing your opponent to kill your Marsh or your Ritz in a kind of more awkward way. You know, you've gone from getting like plus 10 with a Marsh Ritz, say, to Amaterasu just being like completely changing it to being out of your favor, and suddenly, unless you got another Marsh or something on hand straight away, that relying on those two cards to win the game now is just not viable, especially with how good just mono fire is in general, and especially Terra as well, Terra S from the 2-player starter set, allowing you to even kill Neo XIII with Amaterasu now too.
Yeah, so Mitch, we talked about this a bit. It's nice to see like the diverse meta, and the tournaments we've seen, you know, we've had a few, particularly America, they've managed to get sort of towards the 50 sort of player level. We obviously had the big YYT one, which was like 24, was it, Michael? 22 participants.
I think it was 24 in the end. Yeah.
And yeah, the top spread was quite diverse. But that said, as sort of myself and Mitch, people like to play like different decks all the time and just try things out, and sort of more casual, fun decks. It is quite oppressive at the top. And you know, personally, I found Opus 12 a bit of a grind because, you know, particularly the first few months of it. It's only the last sort of month or so I've started to enjoy it and having success with things. But I found it very difficult as sort of a mid to lower player to get something to stick. Whereas Opus 11, you know, I was starting to do quite well with, you know, even sort of Mimi style decks. But at the top, it does sometimes feel a bit like overstrong and almost unplayable. Like if you're up against a Shikari person, it's very, very hard to deal with as sort of a regular thing. X-Def turn 1, that sort of thing, it's all very hard to deal with. You can tech in for X-Def, but then you find yourself lacking against other things.
Yeah.
So it's been very that side's been
think-
quite depressing and hard. I don't know if anyone else.
It's not a consequence
see
of
that.
how plural the meta is.
Yeah.
It's even at the top level, like building a deck that can handle everything. Like Alex, you've been on your stream, you've been trying to build the Water Lightning deck, so it could be able to deal with Cyan pretty much all of the time, or enough of the time that you're going to have a positive win rate. And like that, we're finding that really difficult to continually do. So when you're not continually taking against things and you're not keeping up to date with the meta, it can be a little bit, as you said, oppressive. Like that when there's more things to look out for because of how many broken combos there are. It's like the game is more fun, but then if you're just, you take a week break, then or you just don't build a deck for anything, then it's maybe it can be a little bit annoying.
So, I mean, Alex, how do you? This is actually someone had asked this as one of the pre-submitted questions for you. So often when you're building on, we're talking about here having to tech for everything because otherwise you're just going to get stomped by something. On your stream when you're deck building stuff, you're often like, oh, if they run Shikaris, I'll chuck in a Shadow Lord because that deals with Shikaris. But like, how do you make those consistent? Because for the regular player, that Shadow Lord will be at the bottom of your deck for the whole game when they play Shikaris, and you'll never see it. Whereas at sort of your level, you're just like, oh, this can deal with that. I'll bung that in there. Don't have to worry about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's generally not as simple as playing just like one answer like Shadow Lord. Like Shadow Lord, when I was playing that at the YYT event at the end of last year, that was sort of another answer as well as a bunch of other answers that I put in specifically for stuff like Barts and Shikaris, and it was stuff like the new Diablos that came out this set. So it wasn't just that. It's just I don't know. Shadow Lord just happened to just fit at that kind of exact moment, and it worked so well during the tournament. But I'd probably never play it again, or I would never play it in this kind of meta. But like generally, when we're going for one, I was like that. Like Shadow Lord's not a great example there because I wasn't playing Star Sibyl. If you are, Star Sibyl can kind of count as 4 Shadow Lords if you're playing 3 Star Sibyl, because whenever you need the Shadow Lord, as long as you've got a Star Sibyl or hit a Star Sibyl EX burst, you get access to it. But I now started seeing, like, not that I agree with it, but people in the Earth decks putting in like Black Tortoise, Lassie, Gilgamesh to help kind of stabilize versus Neo X Death. And obviously that card on its own, just playing 1 copy again is very, very risky. If you play 3 copies of Gabranth that searches 5 drops or more, then all of a sudden you're playing 4 copies of that 1 out. So as long as you're kind of playing like, I don't know, say 3 to 5 answers to the same kind of strategy, then you should find them consistent enough. Playing 3 of a card is generally enough to see it by the time you need it in most games. Like if we really needed Shantotto that much in Earthwind, we could play 3, but generally most of the Earthwind players find that we only need 2 Shantottos most of the time because they'll see it enough, or we have Q-Sith to get it back from the break zone, stuff like that.
So in terms of, you said you're the lock, what do they call it, Storm?
Yeah, they call it Storm. I mean, my Twitch chat's now very upset people calling it Storm because they link me to some Storm cards at NMTG, and it's more that they duplicate them. They duplicate their effects for how many of something you've cast in the turn. And people are saying, well, if Lock was actually a Storm card, then Lock would be broken if you could just, every card you cast, dole freeze 2 characters. But I just prefer Earthwind Lock. But yeah, Storm, I guess, is the general title people have come to know now.
Are you thinking that's the best deck in the game at the moment, or?
For me, it is. I mean, I find like I'm okay as like an aggro player, but I'm not this kind of aggro player that likes playing like the no backup stuff. I don't like playing Neo X Death turn 1, stuff like that. Although ironically, I became somewhat famous for playing another 6-drop X Death on turn 1, but that was a long time ago. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, it just gives you so many options, and it's so well positioned because it naturally is able to play so many cards that deal with these meta threats without like kind of spoiling other matchups. Like we were saying, like with Thancred, Michael was saying earlier, how I had to tech in like Adramelic the Wrath, a card I never expected to play, in order to try and counter Cyan during my opponent's turn. I am making my deck worse just to beat a card I can't otherwise beat with that Thancred deck. And that's kind of why I think it's not actually tier 1. But like Earth Wind is just naturally, you know, you're playing Alexander because it deals with like XDeath and Tenzin and stuff. But it's not an inconvenient card. You know, Alexander 4 CP is just a solid card that you don't mind playing anyway because you're Cryon. So you just naturally got these answers to everything else that's strong. And that feels like a good place to be, that you just can beat anything, you know? So I do think for that reason that Earthwind is the best. But having played Samurais myself, having played against it, I feel like it's a pretty close second right now, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how Fire has, I guess it was always on the cusp of just needing a couple of things. We thought Braskazaeum was the one that pushed it over, but yeah, I think people weren't so keen on Tenzin either when they first saw it. But I guess he's not really the main part of the deck, is it? It's about the Cyan, but it is very strong. Again, it's another one that feels absolutely broken when you're stuck playing against it and can't deal with it. There's a lot of love in the chat for Tyro, just as your consistency to get your one-offs and stuff like that.
Yeah, we couldn't play Lock without Tyro.
Is there anything really too much Tyro? Is that a thing? Probably not.
It has the EX burst. You know, if it didn't have EX burst, it would be a little bit different. But it's just the fact that you can just afford to play 3, because it's nice when a card you want to play anyway has an EX burst that's that good. You just might as well just play 3. You know, you can't really get too much of it. I don't know if I'd play 4 given the opportunity, but maybe in some decks you would. I don't know.
And then you mentioned a lot about the Earth Wind has lots of counters, but they're all wind cards. Do we think there's a bit of a problem that wind is always the one that has the answer for everything? Often the top decks involve wind because it literally has everything. Is that having an effect on?
Like the one thing it doesn't have, which Earthwind does show, is that it doesn't have the best answers to 3 CP forwards, and that's why I think Cyan's doing so well, because nothing really has good answers to Cyan or 3-drops in general. This new 3 CP Una, but yeah, it does feel like, because that's the thing. Wind's at that point now where maybe sometimes we can't play 5 CP Diablos because it's a bit too slow, but when we don't have to play that card anymore, when it meant so much to the archetype before, it was like the summon you played. When it came out, it was like the first actual good wind summon back in Opus 5. And now, you know, now we're not just... Most of the decks I play just don't play Diablos at all. It does make you think, yeah, wind just kind of manages to handle everything in some way. Not even with particularly like direct answers. The cards are just that good naturally on their own kind of thing. They just happen to work well together.
Definitely. To Mitch, another thing you've been enjoying in Opus 12 is the Cryo. I know, Alex, in fact, you have this term for it. Was it Cryo Gamers?
Cryo Gamers?
Cryo Gamers. So Mitch, you're loving this one. That's shaking things up a bit and sort of reintroduced summons. You talked about Amaterasu, whatever he's called, Amaterasu as well. Summons were on the out, weren't they? Pre-Opus 11. And now they've sort of slid back in, and now they're quite a staple thing to have in decks again.
Yeah, I think they've just introduced more recently like a lot stronger summons. I mean, you've got like Sildra, which searches very well. You've got even the new Alexander, and there's Amaterasu. They're all very strong like summons that have come out this set and just really give a power to a deck that it didn't previously have. You can also do it like the benefit of summons is obviously that you can do it during your opponent's turn, disrupt them and stuff like that. And there was never like in like previous sets like Opus like 10 and stuff like that, there was like the Rampare list didn't even run summons. Now I don't think there could be a list currently that doesn't run summons. I think they would all, because you need to stop your opponents during their turn, especially against like a deck like a Water Lightning. If you don't stop them doing something, they're going to play 5 forwards in their turn. So I think, as I said, since they've introduced these stronger summons, it has like changed the game a lot, and that's made Cryo like really good, because you can also just play Cryo and use their summons against them. So if everyone wants to run the best cards, but then Cryo also means that their best cards are also your best cards.
Yeah, so, absolutely. James Kenneth Duff from the YYT constantly is asking for a Creel promo that has the Communist Manifesto on it somewhere for exactly that. Because, you know, it's error summons. It's Creel being able to reduce the cost of any summons it costs by 2 CP, because it doesn't cost your card in hand like a normal summon cast would, is really, really big as well, because it's like, funnily enough, Creel is actually probably one of the better things Earth Wind has against 3 CP forwards if they're against fire, because you can, like for example, Cyan, you can obviously cast their 1-drop efforts to kill it, but you're not spending 3 CP on that 1-drop effort, you're spending 1 CP, and like that kind of stuff. It just makes it so it's long-lastingly powerful on top of being, generically good.
So I guess in terms of Opus 12, I guess the last thing to say, are you guys disappointed that you've not been able to competitively play? And Opus 11, I guess we have sort of covered that before. Are you disappointed you haven't had a chance to sort of competitively play this Opus, or do you think you would enjoy the like Crystal Cups and stuff in this Opus, or would it be a bit sweaty?
Yeah, I've missed the social aspect of it, like the hanging out with everyone, playing against them, and then afterwards going to the pub, and whether you drink or not, just vibing and playing games with people afterwards. Like, I've missed that aspect the most of it. In terms of actually playing I've definitely missed it. I've missed like the build up to an event where you sit and you practice loads of your pals, and then when you get to the event, you realise that you practiced against the wrong decks and you were idiots. Still, I've missed that. I've missed that fight,
Turn 1 and they slap down 3 Shikaris and like, I wasn't expecting this.
Oh wow, I've been playing against Waterfire Knights. What's going on here? No one's even playing that. Jesus.
I mean, Alex, how would you feel having to, trying to win back the World Champion title in the Opus 12 meta?
That's the thing, right? It's like, as much as I've enjoyed the format for the most part, the last thing you want to do is turn up to Crystal Cup and, rounds 1, 4, 5, and 7, or whatever. There's just a turn 1 Neo Exit against you, half your games. You start against that. So if that kind of didn't exist, I would enjoy it a lot more, because it is quite interactive. It's quite demanding of like you to kind of, I guess, think fast, because of how fast the game can be in the early turns. Even Opus 11, you barely ever dream of playing a forward on turn 1 unless you absolutely had to. Maybe Kadaj would be the one you play on turn 1, but that's about it. And now we've got Neo Death, we've got Tenzen, and just even like some of the Earth Wind decks, just playing like Izana and stuff. We slap that down on turn 1, and so all of a sudden you've got a clock going from the first turn. It's quite an intense way of playing the game, I guess, rather than just the standard. Play some backups, play another backup, and then sort of go at it from there. I would have liked to have played it kind of purely for the aspect that, as I say, it's refreshing, not just because of the new decks, but the new just way of playing the game, and that we get going so quickly.
Yeah,
I wonder if 8 rounds of this stressful meta game would actually take out of us a bit more.
You'd have long breaks in between where Neo's 1 on turn 4, and that's it. You can just go
and have a
break.
Actually eat something.
AM lunch.
No, it's interesting you say intense, probably a good word. So that probably has shaken things up as well. It's probably fair to say, Alex, you won the YYT tournament anyway, so obviously you've
don't rub it in.
yeah, it's not too much of a big deal for you, but you could probably say previous series you would be quite confident going to any event knowing you're probably going to top cut and have a good chance of taking it. Are you suggesting potentially now you'd be going in thinking I'm going to have to really work for this time?
I don't really ever go into it feeling confident I'm gonna make top cut, but that's just kind of me expecting the worst, hoping for the best kind of mindset. But it's weird, like whenever I play Earth Wind at tournaments where every game is the difference between 3 points and no points on the leaderboard kind of thing, it is definitely different. Like Earth Wind historically is a deck where it's not like you ever win game 7-0, like ever, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of the games you'll go to like between 4 and 6 damage, and in those closing turns you can't afford to make mistakes, you can't afford to give your opponent these random chances to kill you. So I feel like I would be going in with the best deck now. If there was a Crystal Cup tomorrow and I had one of the Earthwind builds I've been playing, I'd feel confident that I had a great deck, but I know just there's just the same chance as always that 1 or 2 rounds you just might. It's not even like turn 1 Neo X Death kind of thing you lose to. It's just sometimes you whiff on a bit of a draw. Your opponent, gets a good draw, and you kind of just suddenly die. 1 turn before you're set up. So I do wonder, would I actually? I probably would go with Earthwind, but I feel like Samurais generally is a much sort of more stress-free. Actually, if you play that deck really well, I think you probably have an easier time making top cut in an event than Earthwind. So given the fact that I'd probably still play Earthwind, definitely be a bit more stressful for me. I'm not sure I could put money on myself in that one.
You keep answering all the pre-submitted questions. That was one of them. What deck? What deck would you take? I thought you were going to.
Too good at podcasting, Alex.
Yeah, but no, there's so it would be the Earthwind lock that you would.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what build. There's quite a few variations, but yeah, it's just the thing I feel most comfortable playing. Maybe if I played with Samurais more, I've only started really playing the deck the past couple of weeks. Maybe I'd want to take that too. But yeah, I don't know. It's been a long time, honestly, since I've actually played in real life. Played a like a single deck kind of tournament. Because apart from Paris last year at the Grand Open, before that was like Worlds and Euros, and that was all multi-deck formats, 2-deck formats. So actually, also just not used to playing single deck in real life. So that would be kind of interesting to get back to again, because I'd love to play a tournament where I could play both Samurais and Earthwind, but having to choose between the two, you can never be too sure if you're making the right call for the event.
Yeah, and running a 2-deck format probably helps, like with the sort of Ned matchup stuff as well, because you're being 2-deck format would naturally be best of 3, which means you're not gonna be killed by someone playing turn 1 Neo X as much, or maybe you get it double as much. I don't know, but still.
Mitch, what would you take? Because when things are not, like, if you're frustrated at our locals, the next week you're like, right, I'm bringing Rampair and shut everyone up. How does that? Do you think that holds up still?
I love my Rampair decks, but I don't think it's good enough. I think as Alex said, like there are certain matchups where someone will just slap down all forwards, and you'll find out they're not even running backups in their deck, and then Rampair really will struggle with that. It needs to set up. It needs to get like a few backups out, just because all of his forwards are so expensive. And honestly, I think Fire is so good right now with its Amaterasu, but also Blaze. I think Blaze is really good in the meta.
Blaze is good.
I love Blaze.
I think I would have to run a Fire deck. Now, I'm not saying I'd run Samurais because I have self-respect.
Don't alienate your viewer base here.
But no, there was actually a deck that I tried the other day, which was good fun. And it's probably what I would actually have to go for fun, because I don't think I'd do very well, and I can meta matchup is Earthfire. But it was running the forward Shantot, so that it's 6k, that pings everything.
Oh yeah.
And that's very good against like the Barrel Eye and the Samurais, because it kills them when they kill you, sort of thing. So if they play down the Tenten, they're not getting anything back right when it dies, because it's removed from play. And you can also pair that up with Blaze and stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun, and the matchups that I played, it was very strong. But as I said, I think it'd be more of a fun deck to go, because I don't think if I went to a tournament, I'd be a bit like Alex. So I don't think I would never go there too top. So it would be more just what deck do I think I'd play, and then it'd just be, can I look myself in the mirror when I'm playing this deck? And I think with that one I would be able to.
Cool. Right, so last thing on Opus XII, this might be the wrong panel to discuss this, but there's some chat had come up. I think it was in the US side. I think it was someone was setting up like a locals league or something, and they tried to put in place, like, I think they called it a gentleman agreement to not play like super meta decks and not make it fun for people. And I think he had a lot of backlash from that. Obviously you can't really do that and tell people what decks they can and can't play, and people have different opinions on what is fun. People quite enjoy slapping down turn 1 X-Defs and stomping through and stuff. is there potentially an opportunity for like a different format? We've had L3, hasn't really kicked off. We've got the main, like there's the ban list is very small. We've got no rotation, etc. Is there cause for like a new format that would appeal more to like the casual level player, to give people more opportunities to play sort of a little bit out their decks, or a little bit more sort of fun combo based stuff? Or is it just, get good?
It's kind of hard to regulate though, because you'd need for every tournament that happens, you'd need to have like really strong data on what decks are happening. And I guess we do have FF decks, but even then, not every tournament is reported on, and then some tournaments are some person's locals that they just wanted to upload the four decks that did really well, that looked dead cool, and they've got like 9 colors in them, So you'd need a lot of data to like determine what is a good deck and what isn't a good deck. Because if you use like Alex's old moniker of what a meta deck is, and if it top 8'd or top cut a tournament at any point, then you can consider it meta. And an Opus, then like does that mean a casual player who just happened to be playing Samurais is now banned from playing Tenzin, and they spent money on this card and all that? So it's online, maybe that is possible. In person, once that kicks off again, it's absolutely not, because but they're obviously trying to restrict the ban list as much as possible anyway, so that if people show up, you can, they pull a Dadaluma from a pack, sorry, you can't use that card. That's a lot easier to tell someone than, you can't use Samurai, you can't use Tenzin or Saiyan or anything, because you're super expensive full art.
It's a fine balance, isn't it? But I think even if you had a heavily formatted format with like heavy rotation, or like only can use certain cards, there will always be something that someone will find that's busted and like impressive, and it's going to stomp everything. So I understand where they're coming from. I think it's a hard line if you're trying to just play casual, and I think you're just going to have to reassess what you get enjoyment from. If it's because you like the characters from the game, and get enjoyment from playing those and not focus on the results and stuff, I think.
Yeah, and the YYT is quite interesting for that, actually, because our standard locals usually have people that you will never meet or have ever met, because they just play the game for fun, and then they'll go away for a couple of weeks, come back, and then there's obviously the sort of the main YouTube group, and even within the main YouTube group, there's just some people who buy a deck and they'll play that one deck and sometimes make a tweak or two throughout the whole Opus. And that can be obviously 3 months long, and they took kind of like adjust for that. People like me and Steve and Derek and stuff, we will try and build as like different decks that are still functional as possible. So our locals decks might look entirely different from like a deck would actually reasonably play, just to try and encourage so people aren't just spamming meta. And like when Water Wind was like the most broken deck for the third Opus in a row, it was a gentleman's agreement of don't play that because it's boring, not don't play that because we don't want to be oppressed. It's just we're always seeing this deck in tournaments, we're always seeing this deck in like stuff. So let's just not. So it's you have to modulate it at a locals level, and if you're going to organize a tournament that's like out with like you're saying this like American tournament was going on, like a sort out with the boundaries of this one little local niche, then you can't really restrict it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard Sorry, go ahead.
The thing you're talking about like balancing it with the gentleman's agreement kind of thing. I was thinking like, how do you just regulate on a base level? Because every time a new meta comes around, the decks change because of the new cards. So let's say you wanted to not play the meta of the current format. So what do? You ban Lock, you ban Kryl, you ban Tenzin. You don't ban Sign at that point because Tenzin's already gone. You ban XIII, and you ban, I don't know, Zidane, Thancred, Mid-Previa, whatever, stuff like that. You ban like those 5 or 6 cards. And then what does the meta become, Then the meta becomes Marsh Ritz or Opus XI, because you haven't banned Marsh Ritz. Okay, so I'll ban Marsh Ritz. And then what does the meta become? The meta becomes Win War again of Opus X and all those sets before. You start banning Fina and Valifor. It just goes backwards all the time, right? Because every top tier deck comes out with each set. So unless you do deliberately super banned formats like L3 or Pauper or stuff like that, there really isn't a way to ever regulate it that it doesn't just go backwards.
Yeah, that's a good project. Maybe Pauper is the answer for that guy in where he wanted to do like the casual tournament. Pauper, or like even push like Title. He could do different formats each week or something. Because Title is about crazy fun, isn't it? And it's a bit of a mental game and just a bit of fun. So maybe that's the answer. Yeah, I agree. I don't think if you start banning everything, it just goes in circles and something else always climbs up. People were crying out for Marsh Ritz that needed banned, and then the next Opus is dead because counter cards come out and something else is better. So this game sort of self-regulates quite well, except for Neo XDeath. It doesn't need to exist. We'll have a look at the spoilers in a minute. I'll go into that. I've got a certain opinion on certain types of cards, but thinking of Opus 13, then is there anything in particular you really want to see coming into Opus 13? Mitch, you've been a bit quiet for the last bit. What do you want to see in Opus 13? Is there something particular or general theme or something? Don't just say like more really. FF9 cards, isn't it?
I mean, I'll always want to see more FF9, but there's not really anything I desperately want to see. I mean, obviously, I want to see something that will shake up the meta, and with like the cards that we've already seen, I feel like there is potential for that to happen. So I'm not worried that that's not going to happen. So as I said, there's not really much that I'm desperate to see. I do, as I said, there's a few cards that seem like they could have an effect, but the only thing I don't like keep like hampering on about it, but the Neo XDeath I feel like could have a detrimental effect to the game going forward. Like if someone was to just play that down, that's going to be, I feel like, strong pretty much regardless of what deck that you play, because every deck will want to set up at least something. So maybe it teaches us that every deck needs to run answers, but then some decks don't have that, like an easy access to an answer. So
Mono Ice had 0 answers.
Yeah, exactly. Like a turn 1 versus Mono Ice, what can they do? So unless as I said, even like Olstein, they still have cards in their hand. So
you have to get it dull. That's about it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I think Ice could do with maybe just an answer to that. That's something I'd like to see. Because I remember when the set first got spoiled and like Neo XF was announced, and there was that Facebook post about how to answer it. I can't remember what the Ice answer was, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't reliable. I think it was something like Siller it or something, like dull it and then Siller it. And I was like, that's just not going to cut it. You need to draw a dull and Siller. So I was just, if you can just give it, even just like even if it's something expensive, like a 6 or 6 CP, just to break something, that'd be more reliable. Something with Locke's ability of break a 6 or more, that'd be good.
So Aslan in the chat says rewrite Dr. Sid. So that is.
I just saw that one. I was looking at that on Twitch. While I was streaming the other day, and I was like, man, if this just had slightly different text, Neo XDeath would not be an issue at all.
No, I agree.
I wonder if they're never going to write it, but maybe they could do something similar. Let me bring up Dr. Sid. I've always liked Dr. Sid, but then, like you said, it's just slightly limited, which then doesn't work too great. When a backup you control is broken by your opponent's summons, put one character. Oh yeah, so if it was not broken and just if Sid was put in the break zone, that would be sick. That would be sick.
It's like that doesn't counter an archetype, that just counters one degenerate card. It's not like having an anti-discard card, that counters the ice element, right? But having an anti Neo XDeath card, that's absolutely fine. No one would be upset about that one.
Yeah, well, let's see that. Maybe that's what the wish is. Then an anti Neo XDeath card, preferably an ice, but of anything. That'd be good. I'd like to. We talked about this on the last podcast about more monsters, not just more monsters, but like a bit more meat on the monsters, because they were quite funky when they came out, but they're just not really. They don't really have a massive presence, do they? Other than there's a couple of really good ones, and other than that, there's not much around them. There's not much ways of interact with the monsters. They're quite hard to get rid of and stuff like that. Would you like to see more monsters? We always go on about Marlborough. It's obviously like the biggest monster in FF games, and there's only crap Marlboroughs. I'd like to see a big Marlborough. What do you think about the monster side of things, Alex? What do you think they're all right with it?
Most of them are just kind of too simple at the moment. That's the thing. Like, we need more kind of intricate effects, and we need like better synergies as well. Like, the monster synergy doesn't really exist that much. It's like the best monster kind of card I think's come out is Realm, followed by like Larceus, and even then, like Realm's a great card if the monsters she could bring out were particularly like decent. There's been some wacky strategies to use her to bring out Cactuars for like what is it, Azul decks and stuff like that. It would have probably been it probably would have been a Dadluma deck if Dadluma still existed, things like that. But the cards just aren't quite up to scratch. The only ones you see are the ones that fulfill very specific purpose, like the 1 CP Goblin that gives haste, and Cactuar for Dadluma. But apart from that, I can't even think of ones we me
and the Meme FM boys were running Buckaboo with it because
Buckaboo
it was
is nasty.
the only half. Yeah,
we were talking about
this.
It's
not a good card, but yeah, it's not a good card at all. But when it's played off of Realm, you feel less bad about it.
It's a good card if you play it alongside your Neo XDeath on your turn 1.
Oh god, it's a good card if you play it off of Realm and you search a Flan anyway. Because back when Realm came out, you kind of wanted to. Flan decks were still almost a thing. Like, they were kind of on their way out, but.
Sorry.
No,
I thought you'd finished. I was going to say, should we have a quick look at the spoilers that we've seen? We've seen a few coming out now. We're about to hit a deluge of spoiler season, I think. From what we've seen so far, is there anything that stands out? I want to talk about Celestia, actually. We'll start with Celestia. So this is the new Water Ice 9k4 cost. And water characters you control cannot be broken by opposing summons or abilities that aren't based on damage. And if an ice character is chosen, your opponent chooses one character, dull, and freeze it. What do you think of this, Alex? What do you think of this type of card? So personally, I'll preempt it, so I don't just see where I'm coming from. I hate these kind of card designs. So the cards I hate the most are things like XDeath, Feel Thanos, and now this Celestia, which just completely shuts down being able to play the game, but without really doing anything else as a card. Or do you see it? Do you see it has a healthy place?
This one might be okay. It's like one of those things. It's too soon to tell because realistically, right now, Water Ice is one of the worst element combinations in the game. It just doesn't really have anything going for it, that makes it pair well together or deals with the kind of threats we're facing. So it's one of those things where if Water Ice was really good and this comes out, a lot more people will be umming and ahhing about it because, why give something powerful to an already powerful archetype? Comes out, and this is probably one that's not very good at the moment. And people are like, oh, maybe it seems kind of cool. It's one of those cards that's hard to judge because it's so simple. Like, it tells you exactly what it does in the tech. It doesn't need any combo or anything. That's the thing, right? That Water Ice is underplayed because it doesn't have any kind of busted combos. This is just a generic solid card. So for this to be good, it probably also needs any other Water Ice cards in the set to do something to really make you want to play Water Ice. Because like what am I doing with the water side of the effect right now? I'm protecting herself, and then what? Layla Viking, those things die to I blow my nose and Layla Viking dies, that kind of thing. So yeah, they die to damage effects, and there's not really anything apart from like what Una 3 CP, Cloud of Darkness 5 CP that you really care about protecting that much with this kind of effect in water. The ice effect's really
I think
really
the
cool.
Ice effect is quite nasty.
But for the most part, it's more kind of it's self-sufficient for her. It makes her better. But we need to care more about what she's going to protect. Like Celestia, like a Sephiroth is decent. If you try and kill the Sephiroth, at least he also takes away another backup from you. But that side of the effect is nice, but it's also not the biggest thing in the world. It's not super amazing. It's just a good card.
So someone in the chat says Celestia with Opus II Cecil. So obviously that Cecil is the legend that your forwards don't take damage less than their power, or do they not just they don't receive damage from any ability, do they?
Yeah.
That could be a problem.
This is 9 CP to be Chateau to the way.
Yeah.
lot of CP in 2 cards there. I don't
think
know.
he's
I don't
thinking
really,
about this
I
one.
don't really rate Celestia that much, but for Water Ice not being great right now, but also just there's right now obviously the Cecil or Minwu like style arguments kind of make it slightly hard to deal with, but that's like a lot of investment for an effect your opponent almost definitely has an answer to in their deck. It's probably going to annoy a lot of locals decks, but I think like in tournament, or like, against any competitive deck, they'll have at least like 5 or 6 answers that can deal with it, and only have like a dull freeze.
The only thing I was thinking with this is if it goes into like a Barrel-Eye Guido deck, then the Guido can't be broken, and the Barrel-Eye, if you kill it, you're still losing something. Well, you're done freezing out of it.
Actually, oh yeah, that's fair.
So
the you don't ever want to break the Guido, I don't really think, because you kind of want your opponent to be on 4 backups. Unless obviously they can have reactivates and stuff, but if you can double freeze the Guido somehow with like locks or whatever. But yeah, so like the making it more expensive to deal with Barrel-Eye because sometimes like when you're against Barrel-Eye Guido, sometimes you get that combo down when you're not ready for it, and then that so Celestia can make that a lot more toxic. But I don't know if that makes it better, like supremely better. Probably is absolutely worth playing, but yeah.
And then I'm just going to pull out the ones I think that are more interesting. So Doga, a lot of people said, well, not a lot of people, quite a few people have said, why isn't this a legend? I don't personally quite see it. I don't quite personally see it that much. Can anyone say why they think it should be a legend or why they think it shouldn't?
I don't think it should be a legend. I think it's fine as a hero, but it's just any card that says draw is usually going to be better, like as sets go on. Like 2-drop Zidane's a good example. No one really played it outside of like meme hasty decks, but everyone, I don't know, it's probably one of the most dominant water cards at the moment, just because it says draw 2. So obviously, like Water Earth currently is not very powerful, but it does run lots of summons whenever it is being played, and lots of summons you don't mind discarding because of Creel. You kind of want summons in the break zone because you want to cast them off of Creel because it's going to be 2 CP less than if you cast them from your hand. So it combos well for that, and an element that's quite summon heavy. So I don't know, if it gets more broken things, I can imagine Doga being just like a generic card you put in a deck.
Do you think he could have been a summoner? Do you think he could have been job summoner? Probably should.
He does have a rubbish job, yeah. He's searchable in Earth by a lot of things, but not really anything else, just because of his cost.
Yeah. I just don't like that it says 9 or more summons. Like, if you're running 9 or more summons, if you've gone through that much, like, how many summons do you have left in your deck?
Well, I think you don't read that bit of the text. Like that's largely unimportant because you don't run like when you play like a 4-drop Minwu, the forward Minwu, that doesn't say play. You're not playing it for that effect. That effect's not that great. It's just like a sort of icing on top kind of thing,
Yeah. So I was trying the new Bahamut, and that needs 7 summons, I think, to get the 5k, and when it attacks. And I even tried to do it, and I could never get the 7 in the break zone. So I can't see how you can have 9, and like Mitch said, have more to cast from your hand.
You're just playing it for the draw effect, because even if you only got 2 summons in hand, let's say, and you've got 2 backups out, you're still replacing your hand. You're replenishing your hand. You're playing a forward onto the field from your hand for free. That's good enough. It's letting you sift through your deck.
Alex is quiet.
Afford to do that.
Alex is quiet. He's thinking, what are these mere mortals discussing these crap cards? Call me back when there's something worthwhile.
Yeah, 0 CP 7 to 9k or 7 to 10k. Sorry, is always got to be at least decent.
Well, like first off, sometimes with some cards have it anyway, but sometimes you got to look at a card's line of text and think it's just extra. Think of Doga's last ability as like a damage 6 kind of effect. It's like a super late game thing that it will come up like one in maybe 50. Maybe 50 is a stretch, but like maybe 1 in 50 games. it'll come up and maybe it wins you the game. You know, it's not a big thing. It's like Aranea. How often Aranea is a bit different. Like you have to play around the 6 damage. You know, sometimes you'll leave them on 5 because them being on 6 is such a big deal. But Doga's sort of that thing that comes in right at the end of the game that you have to worry about. You don't normally ever worry about it before then, so you just got to look at the first 2 lines. And right now, the first 2 lines aren't relevant with, again, what's in the meta. Same as Celestia, you know, this is an underplayed combination. The only reason we play Water Earth right now is because of it's the best 2 colours for Neo XDeath. So we also got to remember that Celestia is Water and Ice. Doga is Earth and Water. You know, it seems like, although there's a Laswell that's like Ice Fire, for the most part, most of these dual colours are going to be like skipping one element between them, right? So, but more than likely, the legend, the other Earth Water legend, is going to be it's going to be Earth Water, right? There's going to instead of Leo's the one up there that's just Earth, and Doga is Earth and Water. We'll probably see another Earth and Water card. And what if it's like a really good summoner that we haven't seen before? You know, not card name.
It'll be Iridia. It'll be Iridia.
Yeah, well, imagine if it was. Imagine if it's not that, right? And think of if they just decide, you know what, Summoners is an archetype we want to push, like we wanted to push Tenzen with Samurai's last set. All they actually really need is one busted card, Tenzen level in the Legend slot, and not only is Doga busted, but then like the whole archetype is busted. I know Doga's not a summoner himself, but I kind of feel like
he feeds into that.
He just works in the archetype anyway, because Summoners as a deck, as much as most people don't even know it really exists, is very specifically Earth and Water with Braska and Rydia, basically. So one more busted card, who knows? Right now, Doga's whatever. Looks cool, doesn't play too cool, but in 1 month's time, we might be eating those words kind of thing.
Yeah, but then likewise on the colour combinations, you're saying they're not really serving well. The Onion Knight, the Fire Wind, that does play well with the colours, and it looks quite pretty strong. Or do you think it's just a bit too memey for the Onion Knight?
Onion Knight's cool as well, but same thing. Like even when Marsh Ritz came out, Fire Wind was like the worst element to play combination to play in because you couldn't guarantee Ritz off those 3 CP backups like Lilty. So this is also another underplayed element combination that, again, if this one is pushed in the legend slot, if it gets a Fire Wind legend, because I'm assuming Laswell is not a legend for what that's worth, but maybe it is. But if we get another Fire Wind legend, maybe Onion Knight deck. I mean, Onion Knight's weird because it's like Onion Knight deck. It's not Fire Wind. It's just they just gave it to Fire Wind and like, yeah, here's your big Onion Knight synergy. You know, now shut up, Onion Knight fans. You know, you've got that, and that's your one thing you're getting forever. But I mean, the effect is sick. It just requires you to run incredibly subpar cards for an incredibly above average ability.
So what's your take on Leo? So this is one of the legends we've seen.
Good card. Yeah.
It's another one.
The artwork on these playing cards is so sick.
They're beautiful.
It's awesome. But the effect of Leo in general is just, I mean, I really like Lena from Opus 12. This is a Lena more specifically geared to like FFTC that doesn't, more specifically geared to Earth Wind, basically, because Norse Talent is Wind and there's lots of good Earth FFTC backups. It just seems like on paper one of the better cards I've like read in Final Fantasy in a long while. It just seems honestly pretty. I mean, maybe it's super overpowered, maybe it's super weak, but on the like me just reading it looks pretty balanced. It looks like cards these days like stuff like Cyan and Una 3 that you have to kind of kill on the turn they come in or they get mad value. This is the same kind of card. It's a bit like Kryl, but Kryl is like Leo. You can always gauge how good Leo is because there's always going to be some busted forward you can bring back in the break zone. Sometimes Kryl comes in and the summons are kind of whatever. You can play around it, but Leo is like you let Leo live a turn. You're in some danger with that card.
Yeah, it's the fact you can give it haste off of Barts, which might lead to some degenerate.
I was about to say, is this an Earth Wind card? But I didn't even think of the Barts.
I think it probably would definitely be an Earth Wind card because I think it's just an Earth you probably want to run this. It's got a great job being king because it's got Neox Searcher and it's got FFCC, which is an amazing category to have. And there's like in the Bart's Boko-esque decks, which I know aren't as super broken as they were like about a month ago. They still run a lot of FFCC backups, so like Norstalin, Vice, Silke, the Lightning ones, and Althea. So you're getting value of these even if you're only maybe playing a Boko of that still.
I mean, that's quite.
It's also
the Bart's brings it out, doesn't it? Actually, yeah. Because the Bart's attacks,
Yes.
you bring out the Leo. If you've got the counters, you then tap. You can bring in like can even bring in like that Y'shtola, can you? Opus 12, and then on your attack during your attack. Can you do it during your attack phase? Yeah, only during your turn.
You can do
so there's no limitation on the tap. Yeah, that's pretty good.
You bring back a white mage, bring back a Y'shtola or a Yuna or something, just to draw 2 or protect your board kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's got a great job and a great category as well. Not just FFCC, like Job King, because Claris is a good card. Like the next Leo can go in, playing it with because I've started trying out Claris in Earthwind Lock right now because it can search like King of Bermuda, not King of Bermuda. We can search that, but you can search King of Tycoon, and there's some other one I play that Regis, right, as the backups, but it doesn't. The Leo forward is kind of a bit meh right now, but this is a lovely card to kind of slot in there to make Claris even better in Earthwind, and just any deck that plays Claris could probably fit this in maybe somewhat if it's got some FFCC in there too.
I'm not going to mention Sid Randall because we've already had too many long conversations in our team chats about trying to work out what he does. It hurts my head. So we'll leave him. Let's have a look lastly at Golbez. We've just seen him. People are very happy with this. I think, again, Michael, because it says search for a card when it comes into the field. This looks very good just because you can search for any type of card that costs 2 and it's an EX burst. Mitchell... Alex, do you see this being an Archfiend card, or is this going to be a play? Again, is it the right colour combinations? Lightning Wind is another one that's not played very much. But the fact you can search anything, is going to be like your... I think someone compared it to like the Dark Camelot. It's like your consistency fixer. Is that what you see for Golbez? Or
I think it's just a strong card. I think it's very flexible as well, with its like cost being 5 CP. Being wind and lightning, it can even just go in like a earth deck. Like I'm pretty sure Alex could even run it in his Earthwind Lock and just sibble it in, and you can search for like. What I haven't seen a lot of is the idea of it to go with Shigaris, and that could just easily slot in an Earthwind Shigari deck and just search for the missing Shigari, and on 6 damage you search all 3 if need be. I don't know. It's a very strong card, and it's the box topper, and it looks really good.
Someone's just mentioned it's the box topper.
Yeah, it looks really nice.
It's probably going to end up seeing play like Gabrand does, the 4-drop EX Gabrand. Like it's just a consistency card. Like I think you're just going to pretend like the damage 6 isn't there, because damage 6 is really hard for you to get to and maintain, because often your opponent will just get you to damage 7 if they get to damage 6. Or there's a risk of that anyway. But I'll just see play like Gabrand does. If you're in Wind Lightning or a deck that can tech one or the other, you just run it. Like if you're in an Earth deck that runs heavy costs forward, you just run Gabrand. It's quite just genetically powerful and good. There's so many 2-drops, especially right now, that are amazing, like Creel, Mione. Because it's actually backups. It's actually card size, so you can search out summons as well. So even like in... say your opponent goes turn 1 to Dan, but they don't quite haste it, or if they haste it and you have nothing to deal with it, you can just throw down your Golbez and search it like a Sylph or something that kills it,
I saw someone say it. Oh, go on, you go.
It is like Michael was saying, like Gabranth. It's like Gabranth in reverse. Gabranth is search is big, but is small. Golbez is big, but search is small. And it's one of those things, like I keep thinking, if they made Setzer from Opus 4 nowadays, you couldn't get away with making that a 5 CV 7k. Whereas if Setzer was something like a 5 CV 8k or 5 CV 9k, like this Golbez, it would be a super popular card in the kind of FF6 deck now. Same with this Golbez. Like I don't exactly know where it's going to fit yet. If it's going to be like Lock and you just play it in decks that play Tyro and Wind or Lightning. But yeah, you can't really underestimate how big a deal a 3-mana 9k is in the early game. You do it, even off one backup, you just play it, you get whatever 2-drop backup you want, or forward if you really want to be aggressive, and you can just start punching them in the face. And what do you do with about a 3 CP 9k effectively right now? There's not really anything that does 9k 2 or 3 drop that feels really good for you to do at most points in the game. And the damage 6 is like a bit of kind of flavor addition with the Archfiends. But again, this one is more like Aranea, because you put your opponent to damage 6 without killing them, and they play Golbez. Whether they're playing a Storm deck or whatever, getting 3 extra cast to your hand on that turn can completely change the tide of any game. Whether or not the 2 CPs themselves are relevant, or it's just the 6 CP you get off him. So it's a really it's just a really nice card, cool addition to the game.
And that's not forgetting the actual elements that they are, because it's a Wind Lightning deck. A common one that they cards that you used to run were Cactar. And if they your opponent puts you to 5 damage, there's nothing stopping you Cactar in taking another point of damage, and then you've set yourself up for the 6 damage.
Yep, very true.
So I'm very excited for the card and seeing what it can open up in deck making and stuff like that.
I saw someone said you can finally search Cosmos. I don't know if that's a thing, but if you're a light fan, that's quite good.
That is actually quite big, yeah.
Cool. All right. I think we've seen Ruby Canary. Do you think? I don't think the Archfiends will be a thing unless they're completely crazy. But like I said, I think it's going to be that card's going to see probably a lot of play just for its other effects. But I'm sure there might be a fun Archfiend deck. But
all it takes is like a busted 2 CP Barbarissia or something like that just breaks these. Like I said, like your Archfiends can't be broken while Golbez is on the field or something silly like that. Then there'll be some we'll start seeing them if there's a strong card.
All right. Okay. So we're a little bit over the time we said we do, but Alex, we did promise people to answer your Q&A. So what we'll do, we've been a bit serious as well today. We're normally a bit more lighthearted, but we're talking proper plays today. So we'll finish off with, so what we do, Alex, I'm going to take a wild punt that you've never listened to us before. We do a section called Haste Take, and what happens is you get a question from me and you have 30 seconds to answer the question, and then you get cut off. People have submitted questions to you already, so we're going to do it in the style of Haste Take. So I'll ping all the questions to Alex. You've got a maximum of 30 seconds to answer them, and I'll cut you off. If you're in the chat, we are on a delay, so if you haven't submitted your question yet, do it quickly now so I might see it. And then Mitch and Michael, you can chip in at the end if you think Alex has not answered it very well. Something. That sound good?
Yep.
Michael, you have to put a Q in front of your question if you want it in the chat, otherwise it doesn't get asked. Right, okay. Question number 1. I think some of these have been answered. I'm going to do a thing. So, without knowing your opponent and what they're playing, if you had all 3 Shikaris, would you play them down turn 1?
If I'm playing, want to win to have all the CP, I think that's a good play. A lot of pressure early. You can get a card back really quick, and you're just threatening to kill them on, turn 3 at the latest, and effectively they're dead on turn 2 if they don't have an answer. It's a good play.
I think this is the same person as asked this one. If you had Neo X-Def turn 1, this is a turn 1 player, doesn't always do it. If you had Neo X-Def turn 1, would you play it?
No, I'd put my hand back on top of the deck, pick it up, and go home.
Good answer.
A man of honor. I like that.
A true samurai. Is Dadaluma ready to unban?
Nah. I think the synergies it has these days, that whether or not it would be super competitive, you just don't want it to devolve to a point like Neo X Death where it's just some degenerate Dadaluma deck where you with Kryl and Q-Sith and Cactuar and Larceus, you just have infinite amount of this, and you can either just win by deck out and just killing your opponents forwards, or just doing what you used to do and ping Dadaluma a bunch of times and chip away at them over a few turns.
Just out of curiosity, is there any card that you think could be unbanned?
Well, I've got more questions here, but that's not one of them. So fire away, Cameron, fire away.
This is just a question. You can take longer than 30 seconds for this.
Thaumaturge is the only one I think could come back. But even then, I'm quite happy for all the banned cards to stay where they are.
Yes, but there's been a lot called for Thaumaturge actually. I think it's mostly just Peter, but right, okay. Do you think we will have more Storm cards, or will this be a standalone tech for Opus 12?
I think it's going to be standalone. I mean, we haven't seen the Wind Legend yet. That's probably the closest thing we can get, but it seemed to be a deliberate kind of, it seemed to be a deliberate kind of Wind Ice with Lock and with like the Riku and stuff. Ended up being Earth Wind, but yeah, I think it's just got enough as it is. I think anything else, honestly, maybe it puts this into a place where it doesn't need to be. I actually think the deck is just quite fair and balanced right now for the stage we're at in the game, and it's fine as it is.
He's very good at this, isn't he, Mitch? No one's ever this good. Nearly Omanar for 10 seconds and waste it. Okay, what has been your favourite card so far? Very broad.
Very broad. I mean, in the game,
I guess so.
Well, technically, my favourite card is Bart's, and so I don't know. I just always liked that Bart's card that I made the promo, but
Flex.
I think so far, yeah, Lock's been my favourite. I mean, it probably changes every set as a new busted card comes out, but yeah, Lock is like, if I read that card, I was like, man, this is so sick. I'm gonna have so much fun with this card, and I did. So yeah.
We've got like a Ron Burgundy style one here. Sky Pirates? ?
They have a great leading man, but the rest of it just kind of falls flat. So no.
Actually, I saw you streaming FF12 for like 2 streams and then it never came back. Does that say anything about Sky Pirates? Probably. Should I play Cecil? I don't know if this was just from the chat from when we're talking about something else.
Oh no, this is aimed at me.
Yeah, that's really.
The answer is can you beat me at draft yet?
Hey, things are getting personal. Gonna move swiftly on. Do you think multi-element cards were a good mechanic or just a way to disguise power creep?
No, it's one of the best things they did for the game. I mean, they need to keep introducing new mechanics and ideas, and they don't have to be super broken. Maybe Lock is a bit, I mean, Lock's not super broken. It's managed to keep up with it's kind of been the center of the power creep along with like Regis, even though we don't see much Regis. But yeah, stuff like damage mechanic, dual element, just more stuff like that to keep the game fresh and interesting every 2 to 3 sets is great.
Actually, that's a good next one into the next question. Kefka Regis, is it god tier or just Mimi?
It's god tier when it goes off, and it's a viable win condition. It's just risky with all the Amaterasus at the moment. At any point your combo kind of gets disrupted. It can lead to trouble, and for some reason the deck just doesn't quite have. It's sort of right now missing kind of one card just to push over the edge. It needs a kind of Layla Viking kind of thing within Element, where it has Mid and Sid Previa, but it needs something else that kind of just spurts 2 4s on the board, doesn't really cost you anything, just so you can get Kefka off more reliably within Earth and Lightning.
Who is your favourite person in YYT?
It's my favourite person in YYT. I mean, Steve Dolman's always very nice to me. Then.
Sorry, Mike.
Okay, I understand.
Peter Sherritt has just joined. Can we unban Thaumaturge? I think you said you could, but you shouldn't.
I think that's the only one I'd even bother trialing right now. Yeah.
What do you think of bounce effects?
I think bounce effects. They need help. They need like some kind of rewards. Like the Anu Leviathan needs to say like maybe the bigger the forward, for every 3 CP the card costs, draw 1 card or something. They just need something that makes up for the fact that still, even with Amaterasu, most of the busted cards have entry ability. I'm never going to Leviathan a lock. But if I can Leviathan a lock and then draw 3 cards or something like that, maybe I'm a bit more inclined to give it a spin.
Opus 12 Y'shtola, how would you best utilize it?
You play it, you attack face,
Put it-
a little point of damage.
So I think, okay, we'll re-ask it. I think he's taking it in more broader terms of make it interactive deck with it, other than just play it down and slap.
I mean, well, you kind of can't. The card doesn't have an entry ability, doesn't have an ongoing ability. It's just an oversized haste with inbuilt protection. Great standalone card. You can't build a deck around it, but it will fit into any of your pre-existing decks just fine.
You run it as a one-off, don't you, in Storm?
1 or 2, yeah, depending on how you're feeling at the time.
Last question. I think this was you, Mitch. Chris Matisky thinks Baralai Guido is degenerate and should be banned. Is this a sentiment you share? Very eloquent question.
I mean, I've seen a variation of the deck. I played against it once this set, and it was quite interesting to play against. It was like I was playing Earth Wind, and it was mainly not a case of playing my normal game. It was like play Zidane as many times as possible and disrupt all their combo. If the deck became that popular, there are answers that exist. It's whatever. I really couldn't care less. You need to see 20 at a tournament. You play it 3 rounds at your 6 or 7 to actually care about that deck right now or that combo.
Well done. He survived the ultimate haste take. Well played. That was good.
Yeah,
very impressive.
I don't think I heard a single
No. Well played. Right, that's all the questions, Alex. You can have a breather now. So yeah, we've probably hit time. I said we'd go for about an hour, and we've eked out an extra 15 minutes from you. So yeah, thanks for joining. It's been interesting. It's been nice for me to have someone on my level to talk to. The usual panel.
Yeah, sure, Tom.
But no, I know people always interested to hear what you have to say, and I think we've seen that. You've been doing a lot more streaming stuff. I think people enjoying it, able to get like a direct linked into you, and it's good to see. So yeah, hopefully you keep your sort of high profile in the game with all your activity. So yeah, and Mitch and Michael, thanks for joining as well. Ever reliable.
Oh well, yeah, thanks. Afterthoughts, we get it.
Yeah. So I guess we'll say what's your Twitch link, Alex? If people aren't aware that you're already streaming, is it Twitch TV Mr Cool?
It's twitch.tv/Mr Cool's Twitch.
Mr Cool's Twitch. I'll put it in the video description for you. So yeah, go check that out. As we said, he does gameplay, and you do like Community Sunday, right, where we can submit a deck and you'll try and make it better and have a go of it.
Sunday, people get to tell me what to do.
Maybe
sometimes it doesn't work out, but I try my best.
I might come on one of the Sundays and ruin it for you. I'll give you one of my decks.
He's really mean. You don't want to.
I'm not mean.
He's mean in a nice way.
My decks aren't very good. It's more the problem. But
he's mean in a nice way. Go subscribe to his Twitch.
Tough love you get from me.
Yeah. Last question, actually, Alex. It's Team Calamity locals tomorrow. I haven't built a deck yet. What shall I run?
You should play a new variant of Mono Water with 3 copies of Opus II Cecil, 3 copies of Opus I Minwu, and 3 copies of Neo X Death.
All right.
That person's not winning a game.
It's coming. All right. I can see it. Cool. Right. That's the end of the stream. Thank you very much. Thank you for people who have watched live. If you're not watching live, thanks for listening. And we'll see. If you enjoyed having guests on, Alex, you're obviously welcome to come any other time. If you want us to see more guests, drop a comment who you want to see, and we'll try and convince them to come in. But other than that, thanks very much. See you next time.
See you later, nerds.
Hey.
Cut.
We're off.